It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. And Summer Scouting 2026 presses on once again. We are having a blast. The tide has turned a little bit after our discussion about quarterbacks last week. We were left a little bit concerned about the state of the 2026 Dynasty rookie class coming out of running backs and wide receivers. Quarterbacks looking pretty decent. Tight ends, what are we thinking?
I had a tough time, first of all, finding film for tight ends. That I think is the perpetual story with this position group in the summer. Is it's just kind of difficult to scrounge up film. But from what I did see, it's a fun class, and I think like the top end is good. I think there are a lot of names to kind of sift through though. So maybe makes this interesting as an episode between you and me because we might have a ton of names, but if we end up falling similarly in our top five lists, we'll have a long list of honorable mentions.
Yeah, as always, I feel like we come out of running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks, and you feel pretty good because you're watching all 22 and you're watching multiple games per player. And tight end is where we get to like the vibes based portion of summer scouting. I mean, we're in the weeds trying to find tape for these guys. Like
I
I'm
watched the
watching.
IMG Academy something, and it was like a camp. It was like an IMG Academy. I just kind of want to see how he moves, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I'm out here like on the ACC football YouTube channel, like rewatching Stanford versus whoever, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the game that I didn't watch a year ago. I'm now sitting here in June and watching it because I want to see what this tight end is moving like. So I mean, it's an interesting time, but it is fun in the sense that I think the tight end position, as you and I have talked about for years at this point, is kind of a crapshoot. And especially so when you're talking about projecting a year in advance. So it really is the tight end summer episode really is like your chance to find the best athletes and then talk yourself into why they are going to become amazing tight ends in the NFL. So it's a fun group of players. And like you said, I think our lists could be wildly different because I personally think this is an extremely deep tight end class. I'm not quite sure about the top end of it, but I know that there are a lot of names to know, names to care about in this class, and I think that's going to make for kind of a fun tight end class next year.
Yeah. So do you want to get us started?
I can get us started. So number 5 for me was like the one that was kind of a revolving door. Like I went through a few different names here. I talked myself into a few different guys and then talked myself out of them and into another guy because I think there's like 4 names that could be in this 5 spot. Like all these guys are kind of similar for me right now, but the name that I ultimately decided on for my number 5 tight end was Justin Joly from North Carolina State. Do you have him in your 5?
He's not in my five. Let's hear it.
Oh, so Joly is a 6'3", 251 tight end. Now, 251, take it with a bit of a grain of salt because he was a smaller player earlier in his college career. I mean, he was recruited as a wide receiver. He was a 2-star wide receiver in the class of 2022, committed to UConn, but immediately made the switch to tight end. So he never played receiver for them. It was always the plan. for him to play tight end. But when he was recruited, he was 190. So he has been packing on as much mass as he can over the last 3 or 4 years. And so he's currently listed at 251. One of his bullet points on his bio on the North Carolina State athletic page is like, has put on over 20 pounds since getting, like they're really trying to sell you on this thing that he's a real 250. But if I were to guess, I would say that last season he was probably playing around 235. And so 6'3", 235-ish sort of a player. That's kind of what we're talking about here. So he is a little bit undersized in the grand scheme of it all. But the reason that he is an exciting player is because he has been one of the better receiving tight ends in college football, basically over the last 3 years. His first 2 years at UConn, he was a combined 74 receptions, 836 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And that earned him a 4-star transfer status ahead of last season, and he transferred to North Carolina State. So this past year, 2024, was his first year at North Carolina State, and he had 43 catches, 661 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So career best in yardage this past year, even with the bump up in competition for him moving to the ACC. What to like about Joly is that he is a smooth mover. I mean, he's smaller, but he's smooth. He's a very fluid player. It shows up in his routes. It shows up when he's working with the ball in his hands in space, which they are going to get him into that position a lot because he is also a very top end yards after the catch threat. He's a career 6.2 yards after the catch per reception player, and he has legitimate elusiveness in the open field. I mean, that fluidity that I talked about with point one, that is showing up when he has the ball in his hands. He has 43 missed tackles forced over the last 3 seasons, and that included 20 in 2023, which led college football, 2 ahead of Brock Bowers, who did miss some time, but I'm pushing a narrative. So, um, and outside of the movement skills and the yak skills, he's really good at the catch point as well. I would say excellent. I mean, he has some of the craziest contested catch just numbers from this tight end class period. He 74% over the last 2 years, including 85% this past season in contested situations. Unbelievably high, and it shows up on film. He is even at 6'3", he's going over the top of guys consistently and winning those physical catch situations. So how is he as a blocker? I thought he was fine. There are guys that are bigger than him up on higher on my list that do not block as well as Joly does. So that's always going to be one of the big, sticking points with these smaller tight ends. But honestly, I was kind of impressed with what I saw from Joly. He's going to have to get stronger, obviously. Like it's at the NFL level, like I'm not sure that it's going to be a 1-for-1 with him there, but I do know that his receiving skill set will definitely be an asset in the NFL for him.
Yeah, this is not a player that I got to on my watch list. So if I did, it sounds like I would have liked him because I had a lot of issues with many of these guys and their broken tackle numbers. And I think a player like that, maybe I should just sort by missed tackles forced on the PFF tab under tight ends.
I mean, a lot of Harold Fannin, Brock Bowers,
Yeah.
these are the guys that are making people miss, and it's your varying levels of talent there, but I mean, you say it every single year how important the yards
Yeah.
after the catch skill is for these tight ends, and so it's definitely kind of eye popping when you get guys like this that are really forcing those missed tackles at a high clip. I will say on the weaknesses front, he ends up here at number 5, and he wasn't a slam dunk number 5 for me either. But the build, he is smaller. I mean, he looks like a bigger wide receiver out there. That's why I just don't buy that he's 250 right now. Um, so I think he's going to have to, potentially add a little bit more mass, add a little bit more strength to project more as that kind of inline tight end. I mean, he's playing inline about 40% of the time at North Carolina State, but I don't see that would carry over to the NFL at his current size. The routes, like, they look a little lazy sometimes, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. Because I mean, to grind from a 2-star player up here to a 4-star transfer, I mean, I'm sure the guy's got a hell of a work ethic, but he's a little bit slow, a little bit lackadaisical into his breaks sometimes. And I thought particularly against man coverage is an area that he just needs to improve overall. Little bit reminiscent of like watching Harold Fannin last year and seeing this guy that, gets into space against zone, or they set him up on screens and he's a nightmare to deal with. But then when he's asked, when a guy's going man on man with him, it's a little bit, cloudier of a picture. So would like to see that improve this year. And then despite his talent at the catch point in those contested situations, he is a career 7.1% drop player. It's right at the threshold, so it's nothing crazy, but it's something that I do flag.
Okay.
All right. So that's Justin Joly in a nutshell. And your number 5 tight end is.
All right. So I'm claiming this is Carson Beck's fault. We got our Oscar Delp at number 5. And you might say, that's a name that I've heard before. He was Brock Bowers' backup in 2023 and had 24 catches, 29 targets, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. And that was like, oh, that's pretty nice production for being behind like one of the best tight ends we've seen in a long time. And then he came back the next year and had worse numbers as what was not exactly a starter, but he was playing much more than he was in previous years. So a little bit disappointing. I guess now I'm looking at the snap totals, and he wasn't playing that much more. He played 24 more snaps didn't get that much more PT, but I'm still blaming Carson Beck because there's some talent here with Oscar Delp. We kind of saw flashes of it when he was stepping into that like kind of full-time tight end role with Brock Bowers out in that 2023 season. He's really fast. Like there are times where he turns it on and gets the afterburners going. He can line himself up all over the field. There's a reason that he was able to be used in the like Brock Bowers role in that Georgia offense. It's because he has the ability to pop in and out. He has very strong hands. He is a good route runner, a smooth athlete. He is like his hips are really loose. He can get in and out and move pretty well. And then with that speed, he's a good vertical threat, especially against linebackers when he's matched up against them. So I still see something in Oscar Delp, and I would like to see, a nice senior year before proclaim anything. But as of right now, we'll see. That's why he's at 5 towards the end of this list, because I have belief in him, but the production is concerning.
Yeah, I don't have him in my top 5 this year. I believe he was my number 2 tight end heading into the year last season because we thought that was going to be the moment for him.
Yeah.
Like, Brock Bowers goes to the NFL. He is out of the shadow of, one of the greatest of all time, if not the. And like you said, last season kind of looked pretty much the same for him. The Georgia tight end room is very full. I mean, they have multiple guys outside of Delp, Lawson Lucky, and another one whose name is escaping me right now. But there are 3 legitimate guys in that room with Delp. And so I think that probably doesn't help. And he, admittedly, it doesn't seem like seized hold of it enough to earn snaps like above that situation. Like, they're splitting those guys because they're all kind of in on a similar, playing field. And I think, we were both hoping that Delp would kind of take that jump last year. I still thought, some of the same issues that plagued him last season were still showing up, or in 2023, were still showing up in 2024. His hands, I think, are still a little bit suspect. He did only have one drop last year, but that was, only on the 30 targets, and he was 0 for 5 in contested situations. So I still think there's, that element to his game that needs a little bit of refinement. And then, you know, I love that he is that prototypical size that we're kind of looking for, 6'5", 245, kind of the new, we don't need these guys to be 260 anymore. There's a lot of smaller tight ends in this class, to
Yeah.
varying levels. And he is one that kind of fits that mold. So I definitely still am keeping my eyes on this Georgia tight end room, and Delp in particular, because I think he has the size, he absolutely has the athleticism. If he can just put it all together, and that's why I left him off, because he falls into that bucket of, fool me once, fool me twice type of stuff. I give these guys one chance. If they don't show me, I'm like, all right, I'm done until you show it to me. So I'm definitely still interested in keeping my eyes on Delp though this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's fair. Also, like, not a tackle breaker, like
Yes.
especially not like Bowers was. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
different story. But only had 4 missed tackles for us last year, 5 the year before that. So that's a thing that I would love to see him improve on, is like functional strength. He seems like he has, he can hold his own as a blocker. You think he has that lower body strength. I'd love to see him turn that into being a better tackle breaker. So that's my biggest knock on him. Outside of, I'd love to see more, because the production just not good enough. So hopefully, Carson Beck in the rear view window, we can move forward and get something going here.
I still can't wait for that Carson Beck Miami breakout
Yeah, that
season this year.
5,000-yard season
Yeah.
from Beck at Miami.
All right. Number 4 then for me. Here's where we start to get into guys that I would, this is my top 4, I would say, are like, these are the guys right now that I'm like, these are no doubt prospects for the upcoming draft. Number 4 is Jack Endries for me. Uh,
I
is he
left
on
him
your?
off.
Okay.
I did watch him though.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to hear what you thought, but Endries is one of these guys that's a little bit closer to the size we're looking for, 6'4", 240. Noticing that a lot. A lot of tight ends now. What was 250 became 245, has now become 240 very quickly with these guys. But um, Endries was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2022. He walked on at Cal over offers from other programs, including 7 out of the 8 Ivy League schools. So if that tells you
That's pretty
anything
good.
about his intelligence level, all but Princeton offered him a scholarship to play football for them. So but he chose Cal. He walked on, and he definitely made the most of his time with the Golden Bears. 35 catches, 407 yards, 2 touchdowns as a redshirt freshman in 2023. And then last season, he led the team. Remember, we talked about this Cal team with Fernando Mendoza, not necessarily star studded. Endries led the team in receiving with 56 catches and 623 yards, and also had 2 touchdowns. So he went from walk on to leading receiver of the Golden Bears as a tight end. And with Mendoza exiting and heading to Indiana, and kind of the writing on the wall with what that's going to mean for a team that was already bad, even with a potentially first round talent quarterback, he decided to also leave the program as a 4-star transfer, tight end number 4 in the portal this year, and he is now going to be playing at Texas. So major upgrade in situation for him. He will now be the new Gunnar Helm for this Texas Longhorns team, and maybe even a better version of that. We'll see, because he's just, I mean, he's really fast, really explosive, gets into his routes really quickly, has speed to threaten the seam, threaten vertically. He has a, he ran a little pop into the seam against Miami, and he ran away from a nickel corner, I believe, on that play and scored a touchdown. So he's got legitimate speed at this size. Improved his hands from 2023 to 2024. I thought the hands this past season were really strong, and he's got a really good ability at the catch point as well. Only a 1.8% drop rate and 9 for 12 on contested, and that is showing up in a variety of ways. The catch radius for Endries is pretty substantial, and then I think, maybe it's a little bit of that, like, you see that he gets offered by 7 Ivy League programs, but he seems like a really intelligent player, and that's showing up specifically with how he navigates the field against zone. I thought he had a really, really strong sense of where to be against zone coverage. They ran him on a ton of hitch routes, and he was just had a knack for kind of getting into that middle of two zones, right where he needed to be, and then also being one of those guys that he's kind of transitioning forward as he is receiving the ball to pick up a little bit of yak, because he's a pretty decent yak threat. But that kind of just comes with his athleticism and his speed. We'll talk about the other part of that with the weaknesses. But before I get there, what did you think about Jack Endries?
Yeah, I thought that he'd be like a solid possession tight end as a receiver. Um, I mean, I liked a lot of the things that you talked about. The way that he finds spots and zones, he runs pretty clean routes. He's a good size, solid hands. I marked speed down as a weakness overall, and that's mostly I think due to like burst and like getting up to top speed. I think like he's not slow, but I just think his get up can use a little bit. I the only like he seems really tackleable. I think that was my main issue is like he runs really high, so he leaves that like midsection wide open, and it hurts him in his yak game where he's not like getting the shoulder down, running strong, running like a running back, like some of these tight ends end up doing. And I just don't think he's a very good run blocker, and that hurts him in a 3 down sense as well. So going to Texas, it's a more pro style offense, so he's gonna have to block more. I'm imagining, and I know they're probably gonna be airing it out quite a bit, so maybe not. But that could be a bonus to him because if he can add that to his game, that's another thing that's a big plus. But like the thing that really set me off was just like, okay, this is a guy that like I don't think he's an explosive athlete, and then he adds in like he doesn't break a ton of tackles, and then he's not a great run blocker. And now, all that being said, I have him at 6, so like it's not like he's way out of my top 5, but he just missed because of those things.
Yeah, no, the point about him as a run blocker and as not a great tackle breaker, those are my two, big points of weakness for him. So I'm completely with you there. I mean, he's not a great lateral mover, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like he really is. Like, if he's in space, he can get yak with his speed, and like that's probably where you and I differ on Endries. I think he does have kind of that next gear that maybe you weren't seeing. But I think that's how he's going to pick up extra yards. And if there is a guy in front of him, there's a pretty high chance that he's going down at that point. Also, like, I thought he had a tendency to lose his balance quite a bit, and that was both as a runner and as a blocker. I think when he was, trying to turn the corner on routes, he would sometimes stumble a little bit. When he tried to make a guy miss, he'd stumble a little bit, and he's stumbling a lot when he's trying to run block because I don't think he was landing his hands very well. I don't think he was, getting square very well, and I think he was kind of flailing around sometimes when he was just, trying to be in the spot instead of actively engaging as a blocker, and a defender, kind of reads that the whole way, and then suddenly he's like, where did my guy go? So I'm 100% with you. This Endries and my next player which we'll talk about. I'm thinking he's probably on your list. Really need to see improvement as run blockers. Like there's no other way to say it. Endries right now is nowhere near where he needs to be as a run blocker. I think the size, the athleticism, the production, it's all very alluring, and that's how he ends up here for me. But it always comes with the caveat where if these guys that are ultra big, ultra athletic cannot be a functional run blocker, it doesn't really make sense for the NFL to roll the dice on players like that. So I'm with you.
Okay. So my 4 is Kenyon Sadiq. This
Okay.
is the Oregon tight end. Is he on the remainder of your list?
He's higher.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So,
He's number 2 for me.
okay. Do you want to wait?
We don't have to.
Okay.
Let's just do it.
Let's just do it. So, Kenyon Sadiq, lack of production is maybe why you don't recognize this name offhand. It's his 3rd year at Oregon, and the freshman year, he had 4 total catches for 21 yards. Last year, behind Terrence Ferguson, who we talked about, he had 22 catches on 24 targets for 267 yards. I mean, this is a really good athlete that is like a fun projection, a really fun projection, but also like shows some really nice routes, has good body control, feels like he always knows where he is on the field and where he is relative to defenders on the field. Seems like he kind of knows where he is in like zones and stuff like that. That being said, like all of this comes with a big asterisk of like need to see more, because obviously we just haven't seen a ton of this player because he hasn't been a full-time starter. But he has a ton of physical tools, and it's like a good size. He's 6'3", 245. I mean, that's the kind of, like you said before, the trend with a lot of these tight ends. That's kind of becoming the like default build almost, like 6'3", 6'4", around there, 245. But I'm really excited to see what he can do full time in this Oregon offense because of what he showed in flashes when he was able to get on the field.
Yeah, I had him originally lower on this list because I was like, you cannot seriously like we just need to see more. Like
Yeah.
he's fun. We need to see more. What sold me and why I ended up putting him here at number 2, he kicks ass as a run blocker
He does.
already. And I was once I saw that, I'm like, it doesn't matter. He's got all the physical gifts that you could possibly ask for. He's a little bit shorter, a little bit stockier of a build, but like you said, it's not really that big of a deal at this point. Um, and he is like one of the best athletes that maybe the best athlete in this class, just pure athleticism, pure traits. And I mean, that comes from, it shows up in his background, 4-star athlete recruited to Oregon in 2023, 79th overall player in that class. And so, he has that sort of background with him. He played sparingly as a true freshman. But this past season, 25 catches, 307 yards, and 2 touchdowns as a true sophomore, behind a second-round NFL tight end in Terrence Ferguson. They got him on the field, even having a talent like Ferguson
Yeah.
there, because he's that explosive and that good. They were just getting him out on screens, getting the ball in his hands, and kind of letting him do the things that he's best at. Because, I mean, the burst is game changing stuff from a player that, a tight end that can show you, an ability to break angles and get out into the open field in a hurry, and make guys miss in the open field. 10 missed tackles forced on only 25 receptions last year. That's insanity.
Yeah.
Imagine what that number could look like over the course of a full season as the featured tight end. 10.1 yards after the catch per reception. That I will say, before we all freak out about that, the Oregon offense kind of juices these numbers. Terrence Ferguson had like over 9 yards after the catch per reception last year, which I mean, great athlete, great
Yep.
yards after the catch player, but like compared to like a lot of these other guys at the top end are sitting at like 7.5 or lower. I think Oregon just likes to get these guys into space and let them maximize their athleticism even as tight ends. The hurdle against Penn State,
That was sick.
insanity.
That
Like,
almost like moved him up my board.
like, like he's going full speed, and it doesn't even look like he has enough time to hurdle. And it was just like, whoop,
Yep.
gone,
See ya.
touchdown. Like, okay, sure, 245, go ahead, make my day. Um, but yeah, like you said, I mean, he's raw. Like, there's just not a lot on film right now. There's not a ton of like route variety or anything like that. Like a lot of screens for him last season, but he's going to have the opportunity to be the top guy this year.
Yep.
And like it, they wanted to get him on the field last year. He's going to get funneled targets this year, I think, because Evan Stewart is out for the season already with the patellar injury. Tez Johnson's in the NFL. Terrence Ferguson's in the NFL. Like, he is going to eat this season as long as Dante Moore can quarterback this Ducks team well enough. So it's really exciting to think about what we could see this season from Sadiq.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was a little scared to put him higher because I
I get it.
liked what I saw when I watched him, and I was like, yeah, there's just not a whole lot. So I was worried, but I'm glad you had him as high as you did.
All right. So number 3 for me is Max Klare.
Okay, I have met two.
So, but before I even jump into this, I just have to ask you, the run blocking.
Yeah,
What do we think about it?
I
I
mean,
thought he was a train wreck.
I would have liked to see it be a lot better. With like, I went in expecting one thing and got shown a lot different of a thing because I was like, oh yeah, this guy. I mean, 6'4", like 240 ish. He just felt like he should and like
Purdue, Big
yeah,
Ten,
right,
like I'm gonna
right.
move bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, yeah, this is definitely mark this in the work in progress column. Like this is not what I wanted to see. No.
Yeah. He was at number 2 for me for most of the lead up to this episode. And then I was like, I can't do it. Like, Sadiq is out here at 6'3", 245, barely on the field, and he's just blocking like a monster. I mean, and then you have Klare, who's like literally, it doesn't even look like he knows how to block. And I know that that's not true. I know that he's in the meeting rooms. I know that he's getting coaching. I know that he's a really, really top end tight end. It doesn't look like he has even like learned how to block yet, because he is just consistently putting himself in terrible positions and getting way out of position as a blocker. But with all of that said, the guy moves different. Like, he is a freak show.
Yeah.
Like, there are some moments from Klare where you're like, that didn't even look natural. Like, I'm trying to, I think it was against Penn State. It's like an out route, and the corner comes crashing down. He catches it, the corner comes crashing, and he just like whoops his way out of there. And I'm like, how did you even move like that? You're 240 pounds and you just like did a little whoop, like you're 175-pound Tez Johnson out here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's the stuff like that that obviously is going to, whatever the run blocking is today, an NFL team is going to say, we'll figure that out. Put on 10 pounds, we'll coach him up. Guys just do not move like this
Right.
at this size. So 6'4", 236. So he's just shy of 240 according to the latest measurables that I saw on Ohio State's website, because that is where Max Klare will be playing this season. He was originally a 3-star recruit to Purdue in 2022, began as a multi-sport athlete there, playing baseball and football. Quickly realized can't really do that if you want to play both at a high level. So he decided, I'm going to go with football. Got his first action in 2023 as a redshirt freshman. Had a really strong start to the year, but then after 5 games, he went out for the season with an ankle injury, which is going to come up later with him. But 2024 was a healthy season. It was a breakout season, 51 catches, 684 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then that ultimately leads him to be the number 1 tight end in the transfer portal this year, landing at Ohio State. So, with all of that said, this is your number 2 tight end. What did you love about Max Klare?
Yeah, a smooth, really, really smooth route runner. Like that was, I think, my biggest plus. Great hands. Feels like he, sticky hands, you might describe him as, where the ball hits him and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. I think he had juice after the catch. I don't think he was exceptional after the catch, but I think he has some juice. He has that acceleration, has really good movement skills in general. Former quarterback, which helps you know what the quarterback's thinking, be on the same page with them. I think that helps him over like those crossing routes, things like that. Talk about settling in zones a lot, but I think he's also quite good at doing that. I like to say that he can, settle any position, but being an inline tight end, it's got to just be a better blocker, because like if you line up in line with the skills you have now in the NFL, the other team knows you're not blocking, or like is thinking barbecue chicken because he's got you across from him. So that is the biggest issue. Is like if you're gonna be like a flex slot tight end, like how valuable are you actually gonna be, especially for what we're talking about in Dynasty, where we're like, am I gonna invest in this guy if he can't block? I don't really love the sound of that. So, but I think he can play out of out of either side in the slot or in line. It's just whether or not the blocking is going to work out. So versatile, smooth, quick, great movement skills. I think that all adds up to be like, if you can figure out the blocking part, which is like differentiates you from a receiver to a tight end, is the hardest part, then you can be a good tight end. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the jump to Ohio State does some good for him. Obviously an elite program, elite coaching staff, like see what kind of improvements we see kind of across the board for Klare this year, because the foundation is absolutely there. Like
Yeah.
he could be a round 1 sort of a tight end, I think. Like if we saw massive jumps from him this year as a blocker, maybe a little bit more refinement with his route running. I don't think you get a ton of routes from him. I think some of them are a little bit like he's definitely like winning with athleticism. The technique can improve a little bit in my opinion. Um, but if we see jumps like that, I mean, he has the tools absolutely to be within that sort of like fringe round 1 conversation by draft time next year. I thought, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I thought he was a really like he's a yak threat for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's quite like elite. Like he's not a power yak player, but he's got the elusiveness, a little bit of elusiveness from his athleticism. He had 8 missed tackles forced last year, 6.6 yards after the catch per reception. And then you get like flashes of catch point talent. He's going down low, scooping it off the dirt. He's going up high at a couple of touchdowns last year, kind of skying in the back of the end zone. So you see that. And then the only other thing I wrote down for him was like the ankle injury was not a first for him. He dealt with ankle injuries in high school, and it was actually so prevalent that he expected to miss time with an ankle injury, and then he went out for the season with one.
Yeah.
So he managed to stay healthy all of last year, but that is certainly something to keep your eyes on with Klare when we have a history of ankle injuries here as well.
Yep. Yeah, that can definitely come up as like around draft time. You might
Yep.
not think of it during the season, and then draft time, it's like, why is he falling down the board? And it's like, well, he has like 3 tendons that are made out of surgical plastic. So
Oh man. All right. Well, is that 4 from each of us already?
I have 3 left. My
Oh,
number 3.
that was
Yes.
my number 3, your number 2, and you have
Yes.
number 3.
Who is Joe Royer from Cincinnati?
Tell me about Joe Royer because I didn't watch him.
No, that's all right. He's an old man, so I don't
Oh,
blame you.
there it is. I'm an ageist.
You are. So he played 3 seasons at Ohio State. Didn't see the field much, and then he had a pretty solid year last year at Cincinnati in his senior year. 50 catches on 75 targets, 522 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's a good just pass catcher in general. And then once he has the ball in his hands, he's an angry runner, which is kind of what I'm looking for as when I'm looking at tight ends. And that's why I was like, I wish I would have seen Joly, because I might have slotted him in this spot instead of him, because I was looking for my angry runner, and that might have been it. But good hands as a player. It can create separation. Especially on intermediate routes, he's really doesn't telegraph whether we're popping in and out, and then also a patient player as a route runner too. I like how he sets everything up and lets things kind of come to him as a player rather than trying to force the issue. And maybe that comes with some age and experience and playing in that Ohio State room, but I think he's shown improvement year over year. I mean, you kind of got to start to see the field, and then end up coming over here, and hopefully can put together a better season this year than he did last year. But he'll still be old, but I don't really care. As a tight end, we've kind of talked about this before. It's like with tight ends, you got to wait a while for them to bake anyway. So just let them do it in college, so then you don't have to wait as long with them sitting on your dynasty roster until they're 28, and then finally they have a good season. So I'll go into his weaknesses right away. Also, just he obviously lack of production is the biggest thing. Is 3 years there's basically nothing. We're looking at 3 total catches over his first 3 seasons at Ohio State. That's a big red flag. Not able to get a true breakout until he was a senior. Every once in a while, kind of round his routes. That's not a great thing. There's a little bit of route inconsistency. I think he's a good blocker. I think he could be a better blocker. I think just straight weight room could get you there, because, I mean, he's a big guy, 6'5", about 250, 255. That's something else I was kind of looking for in this tight end class, was a big tight end. So you expect him to be a really good blocker. I think he's a good blocker. I just would love for it to be better, since that, you're the size of, you're bigger than a lot of the linebackers that are out there in today's game. We got to hold it down on the edge. And then sometimes, he's fumbled a few times. Don't really love that out of my tight end. So that's another thing where it's I'd love to, whatever. Hold on to the ball. Let's do that.
He's got cool hair. Is that on the scouting report?
That's on the scouting report. Got a cool fro.
Yeah, little fro going on. You got tight ends. They need to have a calling card.
Mhm.
It seems like all the good ones in the NFL. It's like Tucker Kraft, the latest installment. He's like a psychopath. He's got quotes in the media, and it's that's his thing. And so
Joe Royer has the fro.
He's got the fro.
Joe the fro.
Whoa!
Hey,
There it is. All right. Well, he is officially added to my list. I am excited to check him out. I will try to just keep his DOB out of my brain, and
Yeah,
then we'll be
right.
cooking.
He's the one that is
Uh,
like buying alcohol for the underclassmen.
yeah.
So that's how he got targets at Cincinnati.
All right. So that leaves just one, and I'm gonna assume we did it again. We'd be 4 for 4, right?
Yeah.
Eli Stowers.
Okay. Thank God.
Yeah, we
Yes.
did it. Yeah, I think there's a reason for that because I mean, I did say at the top that there are some question marks about the top end of this class. That means there's no Brock Bowers and there's no like Loveland Warren, in my opinion. So that's two different tiers of top end. You get to a player like Stowers, it's not to say that he's not a good player and that he's not an extremely fun player. I had a blast watching Eli Stowers, and I will turn it over to you in a second to give me your rundown because I'm about to talk for a while about how this player got to where he is today. It's one of the cooler stories I think in not only this draft class but many draft class this is that we've covered here, Camp Dynasty. 6'4", 235. He was a 4-star quarterback in the class of 2021. He was the quarterback 12 in his recruiting class. This is a high-end quarterback recruit committed to Texas A&M. He spent 2 seasons there, only appeared in 5 games, and ultimately transferred to New Mexico State before the 2023 season. So imagine being a New Mexico State Aggie fan and being like, wait a minute, this guy was a 4-star quarterback. He's coming to New Mexico State. This is crazy. But ahead of the 2023 season, he made the switch to tight end. And the quote from Stowers is this quote, I went into Coach Beck's office, that is his offensive coordinator, and said, hey, coach, I understand that I'm not going to be the starter, and I just want to be able to help the team in any way. I don't even care. I was like, I'll play special teams. If you want me to play defense, I'll do that. So, 4-star quarterback. He's already at a second program. It's New Mexico State. It's about as not sexy as it gets. No ego, just nothing. He's like, I should be, not saying I should be the starter here. Why am I not starting? I was quarterback 12 in my class. No, he wants to go out there and cover punts. That's how competitive this guy is. So, needless to say, he did not need to cover punts to save his spot on the team. Uh, 36 catches, 361 yards, and 2 touchdowns in his first season as a tight end. That included 4 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown in a win over Auburn, which was the Aggies' first win against an SEC opponent in team history. So that's going to be a running theme with Stowers, making history on all of the teams that he's been on. He was splitting time between the tight end and quarterback room, even in that 2023 season when he was playing primarily as a tight end. So ahead of the 2024 season, he transferred to Vanderbilt along with his head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback, Diego Pavia. So now we've finally arrived at this past season in 2024. This is his first season as a full-time tight end. He's no longer sitting in on quarterback meetings. He is committed to the position fully now. And in 2024, he has an absolute breakout season. 50 catches, 644 yards, and 5 touchdowns, including his national stage breakout moment against Alabama in the historic win for Vanderbilt, the first time that they had defeated an opponent ranked inside of the top 3 in history. So he had over 100 yards in that game. He had plays in that game that were absolutely crunch time, pivotal, like big, like he, along with Pavia, those two put that team on their back and won that game. Ended the season first team all SEC. First team all SEC, first year full time as a tight end, 3 programs later. It is an unbelievable story, an unbelievable rise for Stowers. And now, Colin, sitting as our unanimous number one tight end for the 2026 NFL draft. Why is that?
He is smooth as silk. I mean, this guy transitions better from catching to running than any other player, I think, in this tight end class. Also, awesome athlete. The one thing is like he's light. You can tell he's not playing with a ton of weight. He's listed on ESPN as 225, and I don't know like if he's put on weight to 235. I'm assuming making that transition full time to tight end, putting on that kind of functional weight takes a ton of time. So like I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this offseason he bulked up even more, added those 10 pounds because that's where you kind of need to be. You can't be 22, 25. But he, I mean, like legitimate, real, like NFL speed that he has. Great hands, goes up and gets the ball, high points it a lot, especially when you find him like down the sideline. He'll go up and pluck the ball out of the air. He's got really good acceleration too. Gets away from linebackers with ease. You can tell that he has the quarterback background with the smarts that he uses on the field. He's really like finding his way around the field and picking his spots and picking his pace. Like there are a ton of things to like about this player, but it's just like all around plays the position well. Not a impressive blocker, but like not that bad. Like that's something that really surprised me. Is you talked about like how he's like I'll play defense, I'll play special teams. You could tell that he's like I don't really care. I'll stick my nose in it and like give it my best shot in the trenches because that's now it's a tight end. That's what I do. And so I was just really impressed top to bottom. I didn't expect to have him be my number one guy because I saw like 6'3", 225 out of Vandy on the ESPN sheet and I was like, I don't know. And then you just watch the tape and it's like, oh man, and then pull it up and it's like, oh, putting on weight 235 and it's like, okay, maybe I move him up because the tape is too good to not have him be up towards the top of this list. And if he's a decent size, like you can't really leave him off this number one spot.
Yeah, he was a Feldman's freak last year. One of 2 tight ends that made the freaks list last ahead of last season. And so when we did our show to, identify guys off the freaks list that we thought could emerge, we did not talk about Stowers. And I specifically remember leaving him out of consideration because he was listed at 225. And so I was like, okay, he's freaky, but like he's also too small. So I'm not really going to, be concerned with him in terms of projecting to the NFL. And then, of course, he goes on to have this, magical and amazing season and is now, being listed at a higher weight. So, like you said, I mean, I'm sure this has been a body transformation process for him to go from quarterback to tight end. And I'm sure he's still working on that. I mean, now being at, an SEC program, it is Vanderbilt, but I mean, they're playing against, the top dogs in the country. And I'm sure that he has, worked to, set himself up for the best success to have a season like he did by adding that extra weight. And I think that shows up because he doesn't really look that small on film either. Like he's smaller, absolutely, but he doesn't look out of place.
Right.
Like I even thought a player like Joly looks like a smaller player out there than Stowers did. So I completely agree with everything you said. The athleticism, the strength, the nastiness. That's what I love because there's not a lot of nasty. You said it. There's not a lot of guys in this class that are running hard, running physical, and showing you that sort of tight end trait that you're looking for. And Stowers has that. He is lowering the shoulder. He's running through guys, he's carrying guys, he's fighting to get to the sticks every single time. I mean, he is a dog, and he's a blast to watch for that reason. And that's, he's running through guys, he's doing stuff like that, but his athleticism also makes him a threat in the open space,
Mm-hmm.
in open field. 7.5 yards after the catch, but 13 missed tackles forced as well. That was fifth in all of college football last year. So you have a guy that's a little bit nasty, runs with a little bit of power, but he also has this athleticism to get around guys when he needs to do that. Has the speed that shows up, and that, all you got to do is turn on that Alabama game from last year. If you didn't watch that, see them get the ball in his hands two different times on pitch passes, and he made huge plays in huge moments of the game on both of those. And that's, of course, against Alabama defenders. So, yeah, I what a fun study Stowers was. Not like you said, I was not expecting really to come into this thinking, he's going to be the, no doubt number one guy. But he certainly earned it from what I saw.
Yeah, yeah, and also like you talked about the nasty zero fear of contact before the catch too, where he'll like going over the middle of the field with a guy bearing down on him, he's still gonna go up, leave those like ribs exposed, and go get the ball, which I think is something that you absolutely need as a tight end and is like really admirable out of a player that's transitioning from quarterback to a tight end position to be like that unafraid of getting basically freely hit.
On the weaknesses front, to kind of close things with Stowers, I'm going to agree with you again. I think there's room for improvement as a blocker. Like you said, he holds his own, absolutely. Like, he's better than some of like a lot of the guys that I watched, but obviously there's room for improvement there. They're also taking him off the field, I noticed, on in a lot of run situations. So maybe they just have a guy ahead of him that they like more in those situations, but that's, something to note with him. And then um contested ability, the hands are excellent, but it's not quite all being put together in the contested situations yet.
Yeah.
I think that can come. He was 33% last year, which isn't terrible. I just like to see that number go up, just because of, like you said, he's fearless, he's got great hands, he's not afraid to go up, take a hit. Just want to see him come down with a few more of those. But to talk about stuff like that with a player that is just transitioning to this position, one of the hardest positions to play in the sport, and already, showing you like enough to be the top guy in the class with just some little kind of nuanced like things to clean up. Yeah, Stowers is that dude.
Yeah, that's where I landed also. It's like, yeah, there's some weaknesses here, but a lot of it is like pretty similar weaknesses that the rest of these guys have.
Yep.
And he almost like has a better handle on a lot of it than these other guys do in his first full year playing the position. So, like you look at him versus a guy that I talked about, like Joe Royer, who's been doing this for 5 years, and it's like he already is better than you. Like, sorry. So that's where we're at with Eli Stowers. So it's like, yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
All right. Well, that's, I think, 9 names. Is that the right math? 7 names.
7 names. I was gonna say
There it
nine
is.
seems high.
That seems high. Yeah. Good job, buddy. 7 names, and I have more.
Let's go.
There are a lot of tight ends that interest me in this group. All of them have their kinks, but as do a lot of the guys. Well,
All right. How do you know?
don't ask. We're doing some hardcore research.
We're in the dorms with the research.
All right. So my number one guy that I'm really going to keep my eyes on this year, I kind of wanted to stick him in the list, but he hasn't earned it yet, is Luke Haas, from formerly of Arkansas, now will be at Ole Miss. he had like kind of exploded onto the scene his freshman year at Arkansas, had like a massive game against LSU as a freshman, and kind of put himself on the radar at that point. And I remember thinking like, oh shit, here we go. Is this the next phenom? And then he just kind of slowed down from there. And last season was fine, but it wasn't anything great. I think he had just over 200 yards receiving, 324 yards, 4 touchdowns last year. So like not bad, but he did not take the jump that I think a lot of people were expecting. Now we'll see how he does at Ole Miss, but they also have a couple of tight ends there, so I'm not exactly sure how these targets are going to split out. So that'll be something to watch. And then the other one for me, I'm curious to hear if you watched him or what you thought about him. Tanner Koziol.
No, I didn't
So
get to him. I saw his name on a list and I was like 6'7". I was like, but didn't get to him.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna want to pick up Houston on College Football 26 this year and just throw jump balls to
Throw
Koziol all
high
game.
balls in
But
the back corner.
yeah, but so he was at Ball State last year. He actually of all these guys that we've talked about, he had the most receiving yards among this group, 840 and 8 touchdowns last year. He had 123 targets last year. Ball State's offense was throw it to the 6'7" guy.
I get
That
it.
that none of these, I don't even know what conference it is, MAC. None of these MAC guys can even cover him, and it worked for them. I mean, it worked a lot. But so I was excited to see, the 6'7", racking up stats. He's transferring to. It was originally committed to Wisconsin in the portal, and then he was like, this is what Wisconsin football is now. I'm going to go to Houston.
Fair.
So, but yeah, he's a lumbering 6'7". He does not get off the ball very well, and so I was a little bit disappointed watching him. But
If he
man,
was a smooth 6'7", he'd be a forward.
yeah,
So
yes.
I think
He'd be on the
lumbering
Houston.
six
He'd
seven
be winning
players.
the NCAA tournament on the Houston Cougars basketball
Yeah,
team next
exactly.
year.
If he
So,
was a smooth 6'7", the lumbering 6'7s usually end up in football. They don't
yeah,
choose to play football.
26 for 40 uncontested catches last year. So,
Yeah, that works.
but yeah, there's a few more guys. Anybody for you that popped up, jumped
The
up?
only other one that I watched in depth was Luke Haas, and that same idea where it was like, oh, this is, he's decent. He's like, feels like he's a pretty good receiver, and then it's like, this guy can't block at all. So, yeah, I didn't love him, didn't hate him. It just like, let's see where this year brings us.
Last one I'll shout out, a former badge earner at Camp Dynasty. If we go all the way back to week 0 last year, RJ Maryland. Do you remember that?
No,
That's the thing. Those week 0 badges, it's always like, who's going to get
yeah,
them? Are
there's
they
like
going to?
4 total teams playing, and it's like
Right.
we're still giving out 6 badges.
So RJ Maryland in week 0 against Nevada last year had 162 yards and a touchdown. And so we gave him the badge and we're like, well, what's this going to do? Found out through that process he's a 4-star recruit, ended up at SMU, has NFL bloodlines. His dad played in the NFL. So I was like, maybe there is something here. And he was having a really solid year after that, but tore his ACL in week 8. And so he could miss a large portion of this season because it was in October that he tore his ACL. I'm not sure where he's at right now in the recovery. He's kind of a different mover than, like, when I turned him on, I was like, what the hell? Like, this guy kind of rocks, but he also like kind of looks like a wide receiver. He's 6'4", listed 237. He kind of looks like a tweener, and I'm not really sure he has a place in the NFL because he's playing 80 or playing 64% out of the slot and only 14% in line. He's really playing that like
Right.
hybrid role, but And he can move. I mean, he stretches the field. He gets vertical at that size. So he's a fun player. If he's back on the field this year, we'll see what we have there. But so that's the kind of stuff with this class. There's just a lot of these guys where it's like maybe this isn't a perfect, 1-to-1 NFL sort of tight end prospect, but there's a lot of really fun tight ends in college football right now. So it's going to make it interesting to follow these guys this year.
Yeah, Riley Williams was the other one that I watched out of Miami. That was the one where I was like, I couldn't find much of anything, and so I was like, oh, he's got an IMG camp.
Yeah, I was going to say,
here.
I'm pretty sure he was a former top mega recruit.
He was, and so I wanted to see what was up with him, and he was solid. He's kind of lumbers a little bit. It feels like he should be. He's the same, like 6'6", 240. So, like, it feels like he should be maybe a little smoother than he is, but he kind of lumbers around. He breaks tackles pretty well. But I just, like, the totality of the tape is it just wasn't that impressive. There wasn't, like, a ton of strengths. There wasn't a ton of weaknesses either. It was just like, yeah, he's all right.
Carson Beck will unlock him this year.
Yes, likely.
All right. Well, that is 2026 tight ends. Maybe not quite as star-studded as this past 2025 class was today, but we'll see what happens this year, and maybe it will be just as deep when it's all said and done with all of these guys. That ends the offensive portion of summer scouting, but we are not done there because this is an IDP program, and IDPs are people too. So we will talk about them one whole damn year in advance next week. We'll see what that looks like. We might make some changes to the format.
We will be making changes to the format. Stay tuned. We don't know exactly what it's going to look. We're going to workshop it a little bit as the week approaches, but it won't be your traditional ranking because we're just as confused as you guys when it comes to IDP because you try your best to project how teams are going to use these players and what it's going to look like and these guys that are transferring, but we don't know a ton either. So we'll see what exactly it looks like, but we're definitely going to have some fun with IDP next week.
It'll be like a pep rally. We're just going to get the people going for the IDP class. Right. Like now all these edge rushers. To hire us. Yeah.
We're just getting people excited about their product. Just free ads.
Yeah, seriously, I might write them a letter. You know what we're doing out here? If you enjoyed our discussion about the 2026 tight end class, be sure to find us on Twitter, camp_dynasty, and TikTok at camp.dynasty. And if you are watching on YouTube, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you have not done so already before you leave, because we appreciate that. And if you're on the pod feed, like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, and all of that as well, because we appreciate that too. It helps us a lot. We're getting the word out about 2026, baby.
Yeah, let us know what you think about the hanging camp signs. The Camp Dynasty budget has enough money in it for drills and rope because of how many people have liked and subscribed. So we're living the dream over here.
Ran to an Ace Hardware and upgraded this shit. Thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.